They held each other on a moonlit night, young lovers, taking time to be alone. Their smiles were soft, words were hardly spoken. Their loving hearts set a tender tone. She loved how he held her so carefully close. He was warm and gentle, yet so strong. "I love you more than life," he whispered. "You are all I ever wanted. My love will last forever if you'll have me," he went on. Yet she wondered, will he love me when I'm old?
My feelings are strong and true.
I will never love anyone but you.
So they pledged their love in an old stone church. He wore black, she dressed purely in white. They shared their bed under a star-laden sky, and two became one that first night. They spent the next year learning to share, addressing each other's every need. They were fitted to love like a hand in a glove, quite perfectly suited indeed.
We make a pretty good team.
We really do. This is fun.
She said, "I promise to share all my thoughts with you, but you must do the same with me. If we talk to each other, we will stay in love forever, even if we occasionally disagree." The days flew by, and their love kept growing, even more than either could have guessed. They talked and touched on their hopes and fears, and their love passed each challenging test. As time flowed on, they talked about the future, thinking and planning a perfect life. He worked very hard to be a devoted husband. She strived to be a perfect wife. They sacrificed much to build their dream. They bought a house and invested to get ahead. If we work like our parents and do what's expected, no doubt we'll be happy, they said. They thought they needed things, so they worked a little harder. They agreed it was important to grow, but they worked so much, commuting and such, that they spent all their time on the go. They had everything lovers need to be happy, but they thought that they needed more. They believed the old sayings, "You only go around once," and "Money is how you keep score." The ensuing years fulfilled all their wishes. He got promotions, and she got a boy. She took excellent care of both her fine men. He worked harder to secure their joy. Together, they strived to be thoughtful parents, committed to enriching a third life. They smothered their child with undying affection, being more than a husband and a wife. Before long, they decided their son might be lonely. He should have a sister, they agreed. So they tried right away, every 25th day, until their daughter was carefully conceived. Eventually, it turned out just as they had planned. Their second was born a healthy girl. She had big, happy eyes. She hardly ever cried, and she had hair with a natural curl. In time, they concluded their house was too small. They definitely needed more space. So they decided to move out to the suburbs, where they could buy a much bigger place. But along with their move came many new demands. A second car just to go to the store. Then they built a pool and a fence for the dog. So of course they had to earn more.
Look how happy he is! Ready? Go get it, boy!
They got a sitter for the kids, and she went to work, so they could have what they'd always dreamed. They thought they'd be fine if they both worked overtime, but there was never enough, or so it seemed. But as they scraped and struggled to capture true bliss, minor changes began to take place. He came home from work so terribly tired, and she rarely wore a smile on her face. Something's not right, they separately thought, but they rarely shared how they were feeling. She wondered when they might make love again, and she feared she was no longer appealing. They didn't laugh much anymore, and very rarely went out. It was clear they were going through a change. He buried his feelings deep down inside, She told friends he was acting quite strange. "It's just my workload. Don't worry about me," he told her one night before bed. "When I get that promotion, the kids can have braces, and everything will be perfect," he said. But as their lives continued, they drifted apart. If one said black, the other thought white. Her energies focused entirely on the children. They stopped touching and started to fight. Their interests changed too as the years went by. She went shopping and he came home late. "All you do is spend money," he complained. She snapped back, "You need to lose weight." He traveled for work now, more than ever these days, and rarely called home on the phone. She no longer waited up to take his call, but wondered if he was sleeping alone. She didn't understand what was happening to them. Her friends advised her to be strong. "I want to blame it on something," she cried, "but I don't even know what is wrong." "It's just a stage," friends tried to assure her. "All couples have trouble someday." She wanted to blame their problems on him, but worried she had made things this way. He and his friends never discussed their problems. Failure doesn't look good on a man. "The family's all fine," was his usual line. "Life is working according to plan." But he knew in his heart he was falling apart. His job wasn't working out so well. He was racing with time, passing his prime, and his gray was beginning to tell. She went about her day hoping things would change, praying he'd open up so she would know. She brought up the idea of seeing a counselor, but he was never ready to go. He said, "There's no point in whining about life. Complaining to a stranger is absurd."
We don't need a shrink to tell us how to think.
After that, she never mentioned the word. The years rolled on, and nothing really changed. They adapted to each other as best they could. Their children grew up and went on their own, and she looked back to when life seemed so good. She wondered if they'd ever feel passionate again, but that seemed sadly in doubt. If only there was a way to get back to the day when they knew what love was about. But that was much harder than she had imagined. It's a very long way back to then. Still, she listened to a friend who said, "Don't lose hope. It is possible to find love again." On weekends, he fished. She worked in her garden, and they talked to the kids on the phone. She prepared the meals, and he took out the garbage, but it was like they were living alone. The years moved on. They were civil to each other, filling time with menial stuff. Then, without warning, he was laid off from work, and they realized they hadn't saved enough. She remembered promises they had made long ago, and how they had let love slip away. More than ever now, they needed one another, but couldn't find the words to say. Then, one afternoon, out of character for him, he asked her to join him for a walk. She wanted to know where he wanted to go. He said he just needed to talk. She was still half in shock as they left the house, heading out through their open gate. He talked as they strolled. She listened intently. He said, "I was thinking about our first date." He said, "The first time I saw you, I felt struck by lightning. I told my brother you were a perfect 10. She said, "And I told my girlfriend you were the exception to the rule that there are no perfect men." She continued talking. We had fun back then. And she reached out and took his hand. He said, yes, we did, thanks mostly to you. You're the only true success I ever planned. If that's how we feel, then what's happened to us? I don't feel like a roaring success. He paused on the path and turned to face her. I know. I've made our lives a mess. She said, I understand, but I'll take my share of the blame. He said nothing. His eyes searched the ground. She asked, do you feel that you got a raw deal? He shook his head, but still made no sound. They stood there in silence, her eyes holding his. You're the best deal of my life, he told her. Then they strolled and found a swing suspended from a tree. They sat down, and he proceeded to hold her. He said, I've been depressed for a very long time. That's not exactly a newsflash, I know. But for years I've been feeling like I was becoming invisible, a nobody with nothing to show. I know it must be hard to understand what I'm saying after all that I put you through. She said, I've been worried out of my mind, but I didn't know what to do. I didn't know either. I kept having this dream that I was trapped in a room with no door. Everything I owned was stacked from floor to ceiling, and yet I felt desperately poor. Do you think that means that you felt trapped in our marriage, but you couldn't see a way out? No, that's not what the dream was about. I didn't really understand anything until yesterday afternoon. My friend Marcus called me, and I knew the answer. We hadn't talked in months, so I was happy to hear his voice. Until he said, he just discovered he had cancer. I was completely devastated. I didn't know what to say. I couldn't believe it was true. Then he asked me, if I had 3 months to live, what would I choose to do? My thoughts leaped to you and the first time we kissed on that beach under a midnight moon. And I saw you in the garden behind our first house. You were planting tomatoes and singing off tune. I pictured us all together, the kids in our arms, at a time when everything felt right. But then I saw that room again, the one with no door. Only now the space was open and bright. A doorway appeared, and you were standing there, reaching your hand out to me. I stepped over the threshold and I took you in my arms. And suddenly, I felt completely free. That's when I told Marcus, if I had 3 months to live, I would spend every moment with my wife. I told him whatever happened from this day on, she would be all that mattered in my life. But then he said something that shook me to the core. He said, I have no one to love at this time. The way it came out made me profoundly sad. It was like he was confessing to a crime. When I got off the phone, I felt selfish and vain, telling Marcus what he needed to do. I could drop dead tomorrow, yet here I have been, squandering my time I could have spent loving you. I have done my share of wasting time, she said. After the kids moved away, I knew I was only treading water, doing things that didn't matter, instead of being a true partner for you. And as the afternoon light faded softly into night, he took her hand and kissed her wedding ring. "I love you more than life," he whispered. "You are all that ever mattered. My love will last forever if you'll have me once again." And she smiled. "You know, forever's not that long when we're this old." "Then I can't waste a moment. I have years of repairing to do." She said, "Let's go back to when we only needed each other." He said, "I'll go anywhere with you." They rocked in the swing and gazed into the distance, watching moonlight dance upon the lake. They talked about how they could stay in love forever, and they vowed to do whatever it would take. They remained there a while, swaying in the breeze, bathing in the moon's healing light. With their minds now at peace and their spirits joined once more, old lovers fell in love again that night.
Hi, I'm Dennis Green. I'm the author and narrator of Will You Still Love Me When I'm Old?
And I'm Mary Lou Green. Dennis wrote this poem 50 years ago when we were just dating. We were married in 1978, and here we are, still in love after all these years.
Amazing, incredible. You know, at the end of the story, the characters vowed to do whatever it would take to stay in love. That's a beautiful pledge, and it raises a real question. What does it take?
We have a unique way to stay in love, and we want to share it with you.
It's called 5-Star Love, how to treat your true love like a customer and get the marriage of your dreams.
Yes, this is unconventional. We know it's not easy to picture your true love as a customer, but think of it this way. When a business takes its customers for granted, it loses them to the competition. Relationships are no different.
And we want to be clear, we aren't marriage counselors. We're lifelong entrepreneurs. Over the past 50 years, we built an unconventional business together, inventing new products, marketing them, and serving thousands of customers around the world.
When people find out what we do, they typically ask us 2 questions. The first is, what's your latest invention? And the second is, how do you work together without killing one another?
That second question prompted us to examine what has made our marriage work so well. We learned that the values that make a business work are many of the same values that make a marriage succeed.
In 5-Star Love, we show you how a strong marriage is built on the same values as a successful business. They include truth, respect, honesty, trust, gratitude, kindness, and fair treatment while keeping promises. When you share these values every day, they become dependable habits that make each other feel appreciated and accepted.
The 10 caring habits featured in 5-Star Love are practical, repeatable behaviors that have helped us stay partners in business and in love all these years.
We wrote 5-Star Love to help you design your own love story. The 10 habits are tools you can use to build the marriage you always dreamed of.
How would you evaluate your own marriage? Would you give it 5 stars or 2 stars? Read 5-Star Love, take the 10 tests inside, and discover how to get the marriage you always dreamed of.
Thanks for watching. Now, to get your copy of 5-Star Love, check out the link to Amazon in the notes below.